Hi everybody, welcome to the Knitting Turnpike. Welcome to the Knitting Turnpike. My name is Gina Pike. I am so happy that you're here today. Today I'm going to be sharing with you a finished project. I have been showing you guys this project in a couple of my What Are Your Knitting videos, but I finally finished it. And this is a finished shawl. This is called the Moonflower Shawl. The pattern is by Bev of Boo Knits, and this pattern was on my bucket list. Now I tried to film this. I filmed a little bit of it on my blocking mat, and I'll show some of that throughout this video. I filmed a little bit of it outside, but outside was a little bit hard to do today. There wasn't a lot of wind and the sun was casting a lot of shadows. So I'm going to try to do some of this inside. It's a big shawl, so we'll see if this works. But this shawl is a top-down lacy crescent shawl, and I love how it has the little flower stalks that start at the top, and under each one of the flowers there is a bead. I don't know if you guys can see that if I get a little bit close up. Each one of at the bottom base of each one of the little flowers, like here, there's a bead. So maybe you can see it a little bit better. But I love how it just has the flower stalks going all the way down. This yarn was a gradient yarn I purchased from Farmarsh out of Germany. They do lovely gradients. It's a merino silk blend. Amazing, I mean amazing drape. And what I think I love the most about this shawl, this was on my bucket list, like I said, and I fell in love with the design. But I really, really love the bottom of this shawl. Look at this border. I'm hoping that I don't mess it up by being behind it. But it is super lacy, super beaded. Maybe it'll look better behind a pillow. Super lacy, super beaded at the bottom. There were beads throughout the top, but when it got to the bottom, super amazing. And it ends with a picot bind off. I'm going to show you how I did all the stitches in this shawl after I finished talking about it. And if you want to watch that, I thought it would be a good idea to show you all the stitches that are used, because they're not that hard. Actually, all the stitches in this shawl were pretty easy stitches, maybe that will help you figure out if this is something you would want to make. Or you can always, if you do want to make it, you can come back and use the stitches at the end of this video as a tutorial. I used a gradient yarn from Farmarsh. It was a merino wool silk blend, and it was in the colorway sepia. And I love how it framed perfectly. I think it's kind of got darker where the lace border started. I'm gonna get a little bit closer. I'm hoping that the sun doesn't put a lot of shadows on it, but here we go. I started in the middle right there with a garter stitch tab cast on. I love how that always works because it looks seamless when you do the garter stitch edging here, so you can't even tell where the shawl began or that it even began at the top. Then it goes into the lace. She just goes right into the lace. This is very simple lace stitches. This is yarn overs, slip knits, knit two togethers, and what I love about this is that at the bottom of each one of these flowers is a bead, and then as you get into the border, I mean it's the same design over and over, and as you get into the border it starts getting really lacy. This border took me a lot longer to knit than most borders do. The border is very beaded. I don't know if you guys can see that. and it's very lacy. Like, it goes into the chevron border, and almost every other stitch is a yarn over in this border, so it just gets very, lots of stitches, lots of beads, and then it ends with a picot bind off. I thought I'd show this while it's still blocked out a little bit. See some of the details a little bit better. You see the flower stalks with the flowers, and it has like a little bead at the end of each one of the flowers. And then it has this elaborate lace border with a bunch of beads in there. Making a shawl, again, it's pretty big. See, it hangs down past. You can't really see for the couch cushion, but it's a pretty big shawl. It's hanging down to right there, and it goes pretty big on the sides too. So if this is something you might want to make, if this is something you might want to make, I say go for it. This was one of my favorite knits, and again, this is what it looks like. Alright, thank you so much for letting me share this with you. I'm now going to go into the stitches portion to show you how easy the stitches are in making this shawl. And if you're not interested in that, you can go ahead and just stop watching the video now. Alright, I'm going to show you how to do all the stitches that are involved in the making of this shawl, so you can evaluate if this might be something you want to do. You have your basic stitch, your knit stitch, and your purl stitch. This is a charted pattern, but there is a legend with explanations, and it's also done where the text is written out. There's the basic yarn over, and there's the knit two together, where you knit 2 stitches together. There's the SSK, where that's just a slip the first stitch knitwise, slip the second stitch knitwise, then knit those 2 stitches together through the back loop. The next stitch is where you slip 2 stitches together as if you're going to knit them. I need to get a few stitches here, hold on. You slip the first 2 stitches together as if you're going to knit them together, as if you're going to knit them. Then you knit the next stitch. And I'm not going to take this off the needle because I'm just doing this willy-nilly. But then you take these 2 stitches up and over and off the needle like that. And it makes a center decrease, and it looks a little bit like that. Alright, I knit the stitch through the back loop is you're going to, instead of knitting through this front leg, you're going to knit through the back leg. This one like that. And you just knit the stitch like that. Pull off your needle. And the stitch is just oriented a little bit differently. I'm going to show you how to do, there's a stitch called a 3. And basically you take 1 stitch and make 3. You just take this, you insert it, and you knit. Yarn over. Knit onto the same stitch. And you're taking 1 stitch into 3 stitches. And that's what it looks like. Now there's another variation of that same stitch called a 5, and it's where you take that, you go into that stitch and you make one stitch into 5. So you knit, you do not take the off the left hand needle, you yarn over, go back into that same stitch and knit, and then you're got to yarn over, back into that same stitch again, knit, and in essence you've taken one stitch into 5. So see, you have a knit, yarn over, knit, yarn over, knit. So one stitch has become 5, and that's that variation of that. When you have those make 3 or make 5 stitches and you knit them on the wrong side, it ends up making like a little fan shape. This was a make 3 stitch, where you can see like that was a stitch, you knit into the 3 stitches into that, and it makes a little fan design. Okay, to knit in the front and back, it's just like it sounds. You knit into the front of your stitch like that regularly. Do not pull the stitch off the left hand needle. Then you insert your needle into the back of the stitch like that and knit through the back. And then it comes off, and your one stitch has become 2. It looks like that. There's a little bit of a bump in front of that second stitch, and that's what it looks like. And it has one stitch becomes 2. It's an increased stitch. Alright, I'm going to show you how to do 4 increased stitches with this one little area, but basically these you call make stitches, and you end up using the yarn that's in between the 2 stitches on your needle, this leg of yarn right here. And there's a couple ways to do them, left and right. Alright, so for the make left, my yarn is in back because I'm going to be knitting these. For the left, you're going to come from the front to the back and pick up your yarn. Now your yarn that's in between the 2 stitches, your yarn's going to be shorter in the back, and wherever your yarn is shorter is where you're going to knit through. So you're going to knit through the back loop like that, take it through the back leg, and knit it. And that's what it ends up looking like. It's a make left stitch. And they call it a make left because it's leaning to the left a little bit. It's a little hard to see with this yarn because it's a very tiny. So, alright, to do a make right, it's just the opposite. You still use that same leg, but you come from back to front under that. And again, the yarn, where the yarn is the shortest, is where you're going to do your knitting. So yarn short in the front. So you knit through the front of that stitch like that. It looks like that, and it leans to the right. See how it's leaning to the right? Let's do now there's another variation where it's the make left purl, the make right purl. It's the same thing as what I just showed you, except you bring your yarn to the front and you're going to purl through the stitch. Now to do a make left purl, again you come from the front to the back under that yarn. The yarn is short in the back, so you're going to purl through the back loop like that. And it looks like that. And see how it's leaning to the left? These are really simple to undo as well. If you realize you messed up, all you do is just take that stitch off and pull, and voila, you're back to where you were. Alright, to do the make purl, make right purl, you come from back to front. It's shorter in the front, so you purl through that. As you can see, it's leaning to the right, and that's what the stitch ends up looking like. It is hard to see because it is a small stitch, but that's a make right purl. And those are the different variations of the increased stitches that she has had us to do on this shawl. And that's all the stitches in making this shawl. Right. Thank you for letting me share that. Hope you enjoyed the stitches. If you like watching videos about knitting and a little bit about crochet, we would love to have you join us here on our channel. If you are not already a member, just hit that subscribe button and join us and let us get a chance to know you. If you are a member here already all the time with me, thank you so much for being here. I hope you all have enjoyed this. Hope you'll have a lovely day, and I will see you all very, very soon. Take care.